using them as
Israel is
human
killing
shields.
children every single day. And what you're trying to do is be very weaselly with your words.
No, I'm not.
The truth is, you are killing a lot of children.
You
would
know
argue
that,
you're
you know why it's caused?
Hang on, let me
because
finish.
Hamas is using them as
Let me
human
finish.
shields, and you know
Let me
that.
finish my question to you. You are killing a lot of children on a daily basis. That is indisputable. My interesting question for you is, how come you know exactly how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, but you have no idea how many children you've killed? Several key points in the war on Hamas. Former Israeli Prime Minister.
It's gonna be a still a bit closer, Mike. It's gonna be Piers Morgan talking to, I believe, somebody from the, I don't know her name, I don't know them exactly, one of the Israeli ambassadors about the war in Gaza and the effectiveness of what it's been like so far. So this is just his discussion with her.
Ehud Olmert has denied that Israel would kill civilians deliberately and denied the charge of war crimes. He now says this.
The statements made by Israeli cabinet ministers, the leading cabinet ministers, that say we should starve Gaza. What is it if not a war crime? I mean, how can a serious person representing the Israeli government can spell it out in such an explicit manner that we should starve Gaza, that there should be no supply of basic fundamental humanitarian needs to a couple of million people living there. They are terrorists that we need to fight, but this is not a war against Hamas. This looks more and more like a political war of the Israeli Prime Minister and the cabinet and the group of thugs which are now representing the Israeli government inside Israel and across the world are committing actions which can't be interpreted in any other way.
Well, Olmert also said, and I quote, the government of Israel is currently waging a war without purpose, without goals or clear planning, and with no chances of success. Meanwhile, Ehud Barak, another former prime minister and former IDF chief of staff, says the war is now purely for Netanyahu's self-preservation. Yair Golan, an opposition voice and a former army deputy chief of staff, said Israel is, quotes, killing babies as a pastime, close quotes, and risks becoming a pariah state. These aren't radical Islamists or raging anti-Semites, but patriotic Israelis who think their country is losing the plot. Today, Israel announced that they've eliminated Hamas's chief in Gaza, Mohammed Sinwar, the younger brother of Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind behind the deadly attacks on October the 7th. That was seen as a huge win by Israel as they looked to justify the continued fighting. But how many innocent Palestinians are losing their lives as a consequence? Overnight, we saw more shocking scenes in Gaza as thousands of Palestinians overran an aid site run by a US and Israeli-backed group with the intention of taking control of food distribution away from the UN. Many experts believe that swathes of Gaza face imminent famine caused by an 11-week Israeli blockade, which is only now beginning to ease. How much longer can all this go on? Well, I'm joined by Israeli Ambassador to the UK, Zippy Hotovely. Ambassador, welcome back to Uncensored.
Good evening, Piers.
Incredibly damning comments from two former prime ministers of Israel and a former deputy chief of staff of the Israeli army. When you hear what they have to say, surely it gives you pause for thought, doesn't it?
Well, it's quite obvious for someone like you that understands politics that those people are coming from the opposition. Their job, in their opinion, is to fight whatever the government is doing. I think it's very anti-patriotic not to support Israel's war when we are fighting the most justified war in the world against a terror group that committed the worst atrocities at the 7th of October. Just today, we remember 600 days that we still have 58 hostages in captivity. And I'm afraid to say, nowadays in Israel, you can't find even one leader that will say he's willing to live with Hamas on its doorstep. So if those people have any criticism, they should offer a plan how Hamas will be removed from the Gaza Strip, from controlling the doorstep of Israel, not committing the 7th of October again. I didn't get to hear that, not from European leaders that are criticizing Israel, and not from those opposition former leaders. So I must say that in the end of the day, Israel has a serious threat on its security. You will agree with that. No one wants to see people being massacred in their homes like we've seen at the 7th of October. And in order to do that, the aims of the war are still relevant. We want to bring back our hostages, and we want to make sure Hamas won't control the Gaza Strip. Every leader in the world, in the Western world, agrees on those two aims.
You know, you and I have spoken regularly or on a number of occasions throughout this war. I've always said from the start, as you know, that Israel had an absolute right and indeed duty to its people to defend itself after those appalling attacks. And my position about that hasn't changed. But I also kept asking one question, which was, what is a proportionate response? And I've got to tell you that in the last few weeks, I have found the Israeli government strategy in Gaza to be utterly disproportionate. And I'll explain to you why. When you launch a blockade for nearly 3 months to a population which already has seen much of their possessions, their land, their buildings, their homes decimated by bombardment after bombardment. When you say that you're going to launch a blockade on aid and food to a population where 50% are under 18, you are pursuing, it seems to me, as Ehud Olmert said, a policy of starvation towards, obviously, because of the nature of the population in Gaza, of a lot of children. And that is a war crime. I mean, what else do you call it?
I think when you look at the facts, and you should look at the facts, letting in 25,000 trucks with tons of aid, this is not a policy of starvation. Now, let me tell you what was Israel's policy from the beginning of the war. From the beginning of the war, we created a very clear distinction between the terrorists. We're talking about 50,000 people that embedded themselves in population, as you know. Just now, you just mentioned Mohammed Sinwar. He was found under a hospital, under the European hospital. He was hiding there because he knows exactly how the world reacts when Israel attacks hospitals. But those hospitals being abused and being used as a terror facilities. This is why Israel is allowed to operate there. Now, I'm going back to the policy of aid. In the last few days, as you know, Israel is launching a new program, a new mechanism to deliver aid because, unfortunately, and I'm saying that with a big pain, Hamas was looting the aid that all the world wanted to be let into Gaza. Now, everyone is interested that the population won't be starving. We don't want to see pictures of children that don't have something to eat. We all share the same interest. But at the same time, if Hamas is looting the aid, then we are empowering the war machine. And according to the international law, no country in the world has obligation to feed the war machine of the enemy. And this is what happened in the last few months. This is why Israel had to change the mechanism. This is why American companies are involved. So we'll have a buffer. We won't have to see Israeli soldiers combating Hamas while they're trying to loot the aid. The whole procedure is much more effective. And just in the last few days, we saw Hamas putting barriers for the population not to receive this aid. This is the same Hamas that uses his own people as human shields. So we are talking about a situation that's very difficult, very complicated. Once Israel is fighting the Hamas terrorists, we still want aid to get in. And the mechanism, I believe, that Israel is putting now forward is so much better than the one that in the end of the day is empowering Hamas.
The problem is that whilst you're saying all this and trying to justify it, you've got people like Smodrich coming out and making it absolutely crystal clear what the real plan is, which is to completely clean out Gaza of all the Palestinians and get them into, quotes, a third country. That is a form of genocide. It is the deliberate targeting of people based on ethnicity and displacing them from their homes and killing a lot of them in the process. I don't know what else you would call it. I've resisted using the word genocide about this. But when I watched what Mr. Smodrich was saying and studied the exact words that he said, it is very hard to reach any other conclusion than that he is waging a strategy of genocide and would like to cleanse, as he put it, the whole Gaza Strip of all the Palestinians. So you can try and dress up that blockade, which is what it was for 3 months, where we saw the starving children you say you're concerned about, but you've got Smodrich there actually laying bare the real plan, which is to get all the Palestinians out of Gaza. And that is a form of genocide, isn't it? What else do you call it?
Well, let's begin with the fact that if you listen to the British media, you get the assumption that Smotrich is the Israeli prime minister. Well, he's not. He's not the one who's forming the policy on aid. And the policy you just quoted is actually...
So is he a liar?
No, all I'm saying is that his policy, his
either he's lying
statements
or he's
are
telling
not.
the truth.
His statements are not standing in one line with Israel's policy. This is as a matter of fact. Now, going back to what you quoted basically President Trump's plan. And President Trump's plan is speaking about making Gaza a better place. Gaza will be a better place without having a terror hub, without having the underground tunnel city, without having people firing on Israeli cities. Just in the last 2 weeks, there were more rockets being fired from Gaza to Ashkelon, to some Israeli southern cities. We are not interested with any of that. And I just want to remind you, just in case you're so interested with finishing the war can finish today. If Hamas will surrender, if Hamas will make sure that no weapons in Gaza, if we'll see demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, and if our hostages are back home, the war will be ending today. I mean, just imagine that.
All right, but let me ask you though, but you accept that Israel has the strongest military in the Middle East, right? I am the proud owner of 2 cats, which are named after 2 Arsenal football legends. And like their owner, they are extremely demanding. How fortunate then that today's show is sponsored by Smalls, which happens to make incredible cat food. This stuff is packed with high quality protein, made with preservative-free ingredients, and is delivered directly to your doorstep. They started this back in 2017 with a few guys cooking good quality cat food at home. Now they've sold millions of cat meals nationwide, and the results speak for themselves.
Not for nothing. There's been so many damn ads on Piers Morgan lately.
After switching, there's a risk-free trial, so you have nothing to lose except your cat's patience if you don't order soon. So give your cat the food they deserve. For a limited time only, uncensored viewers can get 35% off Smalls, plus an extra 50% off your first order by using the promo code Piers. That's an additional 50% off when you head to smalls.com and use promo code Piers. Again, that's promo code Piers for an additional 50% off your first order, plus free shipping at smalls.com.
We have a strong military, but very vulnerable population that's been hit by a terror organization. We're a small country. We're a small country that its border being invaded.
Fine. I just asked you a question as to whether you have the strongest military in the Middle East. You accept you do?
We do, but at the same time, we're a very vulnerable country when we're surrounded by radical Islamists, including backed up by Iran,
here to defend radical
that wants to destroy Israel.
I'm not here to defend that. I'm not here to defend Hamas, who I think are a despicable terror organization. But you said there were 50,000 Hamas. Others have put the total figure at around 25,000, which begs the question, if after 18, 19 months now, you have been waging this ferocious war against 25, 26,000 terrorists, and you still haven't defeated them, you still can't get your hostages released, they're still not being released, it's clear to most people that your strategy is failing. But what you're doing is ramping up the attacks, ramping up the devastation, ramping up the clearing out of Gaza. You've got members of the cabinet openly saying they want to get rid of all the Palestinians and get them into another country. So it seems to everybody else that what you're actually doing is not winning any war against Hamas. In fact, many people think, including intelligence that the Americans have received, for every Hamas terrorist you've killed, they've already been replaced multiple times with people with the same ideology. And that would explain why you can't get the hostages out. And in fact, the hostages, the more you bombard Gaza, the more you would say that their own lives become imperiled. And the overriding picture, which is what's getting Israel so much opprobrium around the world, is that your strategy isn't working. There's no clear plan for what happens at the end of all this. Hamas is still clearly alive and well and thriving. Yes, you've killed another one of their leaders today, but you killed his brother, who was the architect of October the 7th, months ago, and that didn't seem to make any difference to Hamas's ability to continue engaging in battle with you. And the argument remains, how many Palestinian civilian innocent lives, women and in particular children, are you prepared to kill as you continue going after Hamas when it doesn't appear that you're winning that battle, that strategy is failing?
Piers, how many Japanese children were killed under American attacks, and how many German children were killed under you?
That's a hell of a deflection when you were asked a simple question.
UK attacks in the Second World War. Listen, I mean, if you want to play a fair game, you need to understand how Western armies operated in the past. Israel is not anywhere near to the American attacks on Tokyo that killed 100,000 civilians, and not anywhere near to what the UK was doing in the Second World War. Now, when I'm looking about a strategy, I get to hear all the people criticize Israel today, including yourself, and then I'm asking you this question. If Israel finishes the war today and Hamas stays on our doorstep, what kind of future do you promise my children? A future that 7th of October will happen and again, just like Hamas leaders promised? This is what you expect the Israelis or the Israeli leadership to accept?
Hamas should not be allowed to run a Welk stall at the end of all this. They should
so how do you achieve that? How do you achieve that?
Well,
who's volunteering there to demilitarize the Gaza Strip?
With respect, Ambassador, you clearly don't achieve it with the way that you're trying to achieve it. All you're achieving at the moment is making Israel more and more of a global pariah. When only a few days ago, you have 2 doctors in Gaza who have 10 children and 9 of them are killed in a bombardment by your forces. That doesn't make people feel, oh, this is all going great. It makes people think that you're waging a systematic destruction, not just of property and of land, but also of children. And that's what's happening.
Piers.
The percentage of children that you're killing compared to the percentage of you're killing of Hamas terrorists, what is it? Do you know? Do you
Piers,
know how many children you've killed? Well, hang on. Answer me that one question. Do you know how many Hamas terrorists you've killed and how many children you've killed? Do you know those 2 numbers?
I know the numbers that came from the IDF. I know the numbers that came from a very, very established
give me the two numbers.
Wait a second. We killed 30,000. We killed 30,000 terrorists in phase 1 of the war. Since the war is back, I don't have the numbers. But let me tell you one thing.
How many children have you killed?
We never target civilians. So this question is irrelevant.
How many children have you killed?
Piers, Israel is not killing children. Israel is not killing children. Hamas is using them as human shields.
Israel is killing children every single day.
Piers, this is a blood label you're putting on Israel. You know it's not true.
No, it's not actually. And what you're trying to do is be very weaselly with your words.
No.
I'm trying to understand how she can sit there and be honest. Children die every time they drop a missile in Gaza. Every single time. Those are IDF missiles. They're shooting the missiles. And because of the result of them shooting the missiles, there are children that are being killed because of it. So how can she say that Israel's not targeting children when you know there are children in the area? You can say, I'm trying to get the terrorists. But if you know that the terrorists are using children as a shield and you're still shooting that missile, you killed them. That's on you. That's not on Hamas. IDF has to sit with that. Those tens of thousands of innocent children, innocent women and children that are dead because of these strikes, that's on the IDF, not Hamas. It has been shown that any negotiations can be done through diplomacy, not through sheer violence. This is not working. It's not working for Israel. It doesn't even look good.
No, I'm not.
The truth is, you are killing a lot of children. You would argue you're doing.
Why it's caused?
Hang on, let me finish.
Hamas is using them as human shields, and you know that.
Let me finish my question to you. You are killing a lot of children on a daily basis. That is indisputable. My interesting question for you is, how come you know exactly how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, but you have no idea how many children you've killed?
Piers, I will give you the answer, because when you are accusing a country of killing children, it sounds to all the people that are listening to us as if Israel wakes up in the morning and says, "Ooh, let's kill innocent people now." This is not what Israel is doing.
But you are killing a lot of children. And my question is, how come you know how many terrorists you've killed?
Are you familiar with the international law? Are you familiar with that at all? Because the international humanitarian law says very clearly, as long as you're targeting civilian targets, you're allowed to attack hospitals if you know they're terrorists. No, but you're not answering my question. Israel is not deliberately killing children. And this accusation is a fake thing that you keep on saying again and again when you know we're a democratic country, cares about human life.
I just asked you a simple question.
At the same time, Hamas is deliberately using the children as human shields. And you know that.
I don't deny anything you say about Hamas. They're everything you say they are, probably worse. I despise Hamas. They are a despicable terrorist organization. So
help us win this war if you're so despising Hamas. You're offering to surrender. You're not offering to win.
I'm asking you. I'm asking you this question for a purpose. I'm curious why you say you know exactly how many Hamas terrorists have been killed, but you have no idea how many children have been killed. Why is it you know one number, but not the other?
I'll give you the answer. Because in the end of the day, we never target civilians. We only target the terrorists.
Why don't you know the statistics?
And look, you can ask this question.
Are you saying no children have been killed in Gaza?
My opinion is because it helps them sleep at night.
I didn't say that.
Are you saying that?
I didn't say that.
What are you saying?
Said,
well, what are you saying?
Piers, what I'm saying is Hamas
How
needs
many
to
have
be
been
blamed.
killed?
Hamas needs to be
How many
blamed
have
for
been
any
killed?
child that is being killed in Gaza. Now, if you want to go into this propaganda of Israel is doing this and
It's
that,
not propaganda. I'm
you
asking
know,
you why you know how many terrorists you've killed, but you don't know how many children you've killed in the process.
I have
why
an
don't you
answer
know
because
that?
we targeted those terrorists and we never targeted any civilians. That's the answer, and this is why
you know that
we
you know
have the
many
numbers.
thousands of civilians, but you know many thousands of civilians have been killed. You understand
Piers,
that? Do you?
do you understand that you don't care about my children
don't
and
keep
other
asking
Israeli
me
children
questions.
by letting 7th of
do.
October happen again and again?
I do. I do. In fact, to my detriment, actually, in the Middle East for many, many months, when I was defending Israel's right to defend itself. But now we're at a point where more and more civilians are getting killed in collateral damage as you wage a war and a strategy and a plan which makes no sense to even your own former prime ministers who think you're committing war crimes. So don't just couch all this as propaganda by people who just... Well, okay, but again, I simply ask you one more time. Why is it you know how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, but you don't know how many children you've killed? Why is that?
As I said again, because in the end of the day, when you're accusing someone in killing,
you don't count one, but you count the other?
accuse someone in doing something deliberately, while Israel is not doing it deliberately. Can I accuse the UK of killing?
Real quick, I know she keeps saying deliberately, right? Yeah, when you are intentionally doing something and you know the consequences of it. If I want to get to my neighbor and eliminate my neighbor, so I throw a bomb in my neighbor's house, but I do know that my neighbor has 2 kids, and I consistently keep throwing grenades in there, I have an intention of destroying that house or killing him. Therefore, every casualty that I know exists there is on me. That is deliberate. That is intentional. I am conscious and aware of what is going to happen if I keep tossing grenades into this house. I might just kill those children in there. So that is deliberate. You are being deliberate. I don't know why she just can't admit it.
German children during the war. You would have said
Stop
it's absurd.
playing whataboutery.
It's absurd.
Explain why you know one number, but you don't know the other. Now, everybody knows how much I enjoy my tea, and I'm very happy to say that today's show is sponsored by Peaks Pure Fermented.
I just don't like he's doing an ad break anyway. I just don't like the fact that it's easy for everybody's gonna say that Israel has a right to defend itself. I'm just confused more so why Israel or why this individual is not just stating the facts. The fact is they are sitting there, do not care, murdering children. I don't understand why it's so difficult for her to just admit that. Like, that's what you're doing. Children are dying as a result of your bombs. Your intention is to drop the bomb in this area to kill Hamas, although there are more innocent civilians there than there are Hamas agents. You know this, and you still drop the bombs. So I'm confused on why she wants to pivot and why she keeps bringing up other fucking incidences as if they're justified.
Himalayan monk, get 20% off for life, plus a free frother and glass beaker with the Pure Bundle. Visit peaklife.com/peers. That's peak, P-I-Q-U-E, life.com/peers.
The answer for that is very clear. Hamas is putting a lot of propaganda into it. And Hamas is trying to create fake news.
How do you know how many of those?
I will give you another example for that. I will give you another example just from last week. Just from last week, I think we all experienced this, I think, one of the most shameful moments in the UN history when Tom Fletcher was throwing a number of 14,000 babies are about to die. And in the end of the day,
he got it completely wrong and was wrong.
The BBC had to correct that. And this is part of the propaganda that Hamas is promoting.
Yes.
And I don't want Western media to follow up on Hamas propaganda.
Well, I didn't.
It's very simple.
So you're talking to a member of the Western media, and I didn't do anything with that report.
No, but the BBC did, and then they had to take it back.
I'm not the BBC, and they were wrong. and he has now retracted it. He explained that actually he misread it. It was if the blockade went on for the whole year. We all know the reality. It was a mistake.
Yes, but
he shouldn't have
for
done
a day, it was the headline in all Western media accusing Israel in fake things.
Fine.
So
Fine.
we need to fight that. We need to find the fake things that are happening out there.
I don't want to find any fake things. I want to get to some facts. You seem to have a very clear idea, Israel, of how many Hamas terrorists you've killed. You said the number, but you have absolutely no idea how many children have died in the process. I simply ask you why. Why
Piers,
do the lives of the Hamas terrorists
Piers,
get recorded,
listen to me.
but you don't record the number of children you
I'm
killed?
willing here to give you the strategy about the war because this was the question you were asking.
Why don't you answer my question?
I'm giving you only the answers that I have.
Just tell me why you know one number and not the other.
But the number makes a difference just if you're targeting civilians. If Israel is not targeting civilians, according to the international law...
It doesn't make any difference to the number of children who've died.
It does
you can couch it any way you like.
difference according to the international humanitarian law.
But how do you know about the number of terrorists killed, but you don't know how many children have been killed?
And I'm saying
how
again...
do you know one, not the other? Explain to me.
It's because they don't care. There's not an incident where there's been drone strikes and they say, hey, how many potential casualties? They can say, we're going after this one person, but there's going to be 10 casualties. Or we've already executed this mission. We got the person, but there's been 20 other casualties. It's not that difficult. And it could possibly be she doesn't have that number in front of her. But like, we're not fucking stupid.
Treat me like a village idiot. Why is it that you know one number, but you don't know the other? Explain
according to the international humanitarian law, it makes a lot of difference if you're targeting civilians, if you're targeting the legitimate war aims.
I'm not talking about who you're targeting. I'm not saying you're deliberately targeting the children who've been killed.
Very good. So that's the only thing that we are discussing here.
No, it's not. Because you know how many terrorists you've killed, you say, but you have no idea how many children. Because those are the people we targeted. So how many children have died in the process? Why don't you know that number too?
Piers, please ask this question to the people that can give you the answer. I don't have the answer.
Who has the answer?
Please don't ask me questions.
Who has the answer? Who has the answer?
I don't have the answer. And I will tell you something.
You're the Israeli ambassador to my country. Who else should I ask?
Well, you should ask one question. How do you make sure that the 7th of October won't be repeated? And this is the question you and everyone who criticizes Israel at the moment doesn't have the answer to.
For the serious dose of reality, I can't even promise anybody that I wouldn't be able to promise anybody another 9/11 won't happen. That doesn't justify or wouldn't justify committing mass genocide on a particular group of individuals because of the actions of a minute few, when you're comparing the whole entire population as one. So no, it doesn't. It's going to be difficult. No one can prove. Hamas can just go away for 5, 6, 7 years, and there'll be another attack in the 8th. So there's no real way to promise that nothing else is going to happen. But that's not the question. That's not the discussion that Piers Morgan is trying to have. Everybody can acknowledge how bad Hamas is.
And again,
here's a question.
We are not denying the fact that war is a bad thing, but we never wanted this war.
Why don't you let international journalists into Gaza so they can report fairly and freely without being led around by the IDF? Let the journalists in because you ban them. And the only reason you continue to ban international journalists from going in there is not because of our safety, as you also quaintly put it. It's because you don't want the Western journalists to get in there and see what's really happening. Only you know why. Only the Israeli government knows why you want to continue banning journalists from international media organizations coming in at their own risk assessment and actually working out whether anything you're saying is true or not. And it may be if you let the international journalists in, well, let me just finish. It may be if you let them in, then they wouldn't just count the number of terrorists who are being killed. They'd be also able to record how many children are being killed, because it strikes me as utterly extraordinary that you, as the ambassador to my country, are able to say with complete clarity and certainty 30,000 Hamas have been killed, but you seem to have absolutely no idea how many children have died in the process. No idea. Or you have no interest. I don't know which one it is.
Piers, let me go back to your question about the journalists. I think in the end of the day,
let them in.
We are coming to the point where journalists will be allowed to get into Gaza as long as there is no risk for them. And you know
it's got nothing to do with you, the risk to journalists. It's not your problem.
From my point of view,
It's
From
not
my
your
point of view,
problem.
once there is no risk to their life, I'm sure
Oh, what
they'll
a
be
load
allowed
of
to get in.
flannel, Ambassador. Don't treat us like idiots, please.
start saying
We're
that.
not idiots.
What a
You're
load
not
of
doing it for
flannel.
our safety. You've banned the
Piers.
journalists so that they don't report on what is actually happening. Only you know why you're doing that. I don't know. Maybe you're doing everything completely fairly. Maybe it is the most moral war ever waged in history, as you keep saying. But the longer it goes on without you allowing journalists in, the less people believe that, and the more people believe you have something to hide.
Piers, there is
and
just
the mere
one.
fact,
There is just one
Yeah.
question here, never received an answer. How do you promise to the Israelis that they won't have 7th of October being repeated again? If everyone agrees that Hamas shouldn't control the Gaza Strip, as you just said,
Yeah.
who will do the job? Who will volunteer to demilitarize the Gaza Strip according to your philosophy?
why don't you work? Here's my suggestion. Why don't you work harder on the diplomatic side to resolve this conflict, this war? And why don't you bring in all the people that can help resolve that, rather than continuing to blow everything up that you can see with your forces? Why don't you try and resolve things diplomatically, which in the end is how you got the other hostages out to date? Yeah. So, it seems to me the bombardment strategy just doesn't work. Yeah. And all you're doing is making Israel, a country, by the way, that I love, and I love Jewish people. It's got nothing to do with either the country or the people, but everything to do with the Israeli government, which has now got people like Smotrich out there very clearly, very brazenly, and very unambiguously dictating a term of genocide on the Palestinian people, where he wants them all out of Gaza.
Just want to point that out real quick, that just a friendly reminder that the beef going on isn't between, again, this is also in terms of the shit that's going on in the United States between, Palestinian pro-Palestine protesters and the Jewish community of anti-Semitism. This is more so, I feel like this is more so a beef with the IDF, with Israeli government. This is not against individuals. These are with government officials. These are with the IDF. That's who the beef is with. When people are saying free Palestine, they're saying free Palestine from the oppression of the Israeli government. The IDF, not the people, but the government. I think there needs to be an actual, we need to draw that line. If we don't draw that line, then we're just gonna keep, fucking throwing shit at each other.
Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that's the solution?
Piers, I'm not speaking for Bezalel Smotrich. I'm not his spokesperson. I'm the Israeli ambassador.
What do you think?
And I think whatever the government thinks, because I'm ambassador, I'm representing a government here.
How are we supposed to know what the government thinks when he's out there saying
I represented the last 4 governments that Israel had. And let me tell you something. There is not even one leader in Israel today that is running for office, whether he's in the opposition or in government, that believes that Hamas should stay in power. And we released 197 hostages just because we had a combination of a diplomatic pressure together with a military pressure. Nothing would have happened from a goodwill. This is a terror organization. They don't do things from goodwill. There is no goodwill in Hamas. And because you know it, again, I'm disappointed that some people lose patience. Can you lose patience in the middle of the Second World War and just let the Nazi regime to win? I don't think it would have been a good idea.
I'll tell you what I've lost patience with.
Would have stopped in the middle of the Second World War.
I've lost patience when you start starving kids. I lose patience when you, as an ambassador,
so this is a lie. This is a complete lie. You know we get aid into Gaza.
It's not a lie.
How do we starve people if we let aid in?
When you launch a 3-month blockade of an already impoverished, hungry people who are bunkering down from nightly bombing raids, when you do that, you will starve people. You will starve them.
It was never the intention. The intention was not to let Hamas get over and take over the aid. And there was no other solutions. No one was offering a better mechanism.
But it was the consequence of your actions. Do you accept that?
As I said again, Israel never was planning to starve anyone. And our actions are speaking more than our words, because in the end of the day, tons of aid got into Gaza for months and months and months. And now I think it's time for all of us.
I literally saw footage yesterday, or today it was, of literally thousands of Palestinians desperately fighting. One lost their life as they're fighting for scraps of food. Do you think that's the behavior of well-fed people who are not actually starving hungry? Do you think, on balance, that it may be the desperate acts of people who have been starved now for 3 months?
What I've
and are
seen in
absolutely
the last
desperate?
few months, I've seen, first of all, in the last 2 days, I've seen mechanisms that works. I've seen happy families that receive the aid, and they know that now the mechanism is so much better, and it gives family by family a box of aid being protected by American companies. I think it's so much better than what used to be.
All right.
And it would have been nice if the UN organizations would have joined the distribution rather than boycotting this system and just letting the criticism on Israel to continue without them playing along with the new mechanism. It could have been really helpful.
Just to remind you, the most savage criticism of Israel is coming from your own former prime ministers, not one, but two, and former leaders of the IDF. It's not coming from necessarily people like me, even though I am getting increasingly critical because I find the answers I'm getting just increasingly ridiculous. Now, out of fairness, because we know each other, I'm going to give you one last chance just to tell me, even a ballpark figure, of how many children have died in Gaza.
Piers, I think I'm very famous for saying the truth. And the truth is that I don't know. If I would have known the number, I wouldn't have hid it from you. So why do you keep on asking the same question again and again?
Because I don't understand how you can know how many terrorists you've killed, but you don't know how many civilians you've killed. Why do you know one but not the other?
As I said again, I think that it's totally irrelevant to the main question the humanitarian international law is asking. The international humanitarian law is never about civilians getting killed. It's only about who are you targeting. And if you're doing a legitimate warfare.
Are you happy that people are going to watch you as an ambassador to your country say that it's irrelevant how many children have been killed?
It's not what I said, Piers, and you're totally distorting my words. I said, according to the international law, if you want to check if war is fair or not, the only thing you check is the targets that a country that is fighting, whether they're targeting
just to be clear,
the militants and not targeting civilians. This is what I said. And please don't twist my words.
Can you confirm this then, given you have no idea how many children have been killed? Can you tell me, are the IDF under specific instructions from the government or from their commanders to only count the number of Hamas terrorists they kill and to completely ignore how many children they're killing?
Never. Never. This is not the case.
So do they count civilian deaths?
But the IDF has one mission, to work according to the international law when it's fighting a moral war. And even your own historian, Professor Andrew Roberts, said
international law is calling it a genocide, which is something that they definitely are not accepting in the IDF. They don't think they're committing a genocide at all.
When he sees those circumstances of Gaza, this is the lowest ratio of terrorists versus civilians. So this is your own historian, well-respected military historian that is saying that about our war.
Sorry, with respect, how do you know, given you have no idea how many children you've killed?
As I said, Professor Andrew Roberts did.
How do you know it's the lowest ratio? You don't know how many children you've killed.
But
how do you know?
But in the end of the day, it's not just about children. When you're comparing, listen, Piers, here you're really creating like the totally wrong picture. People, in the end of the day,
I think people can make their own minds.
In the end of the day, we know who are civilians. Civilians includes also mature people.
How do you know the ratio of civilian to Hamas deaths if you have no idea how many civilians have been killed?
You asked me about children. I don't have the answer specific about children, but I do have the answer about civilians versus combat.
But you're aware that it is reported that over 20,000 children have now been killed. You're aware of that, right?
As I said, this has not been backed up with facts, and I cannot approve this number.
Right, but you know how many terrorists you've killed?
Yes, this is the last data we received from the IDF.
Okay. So you're only getting the data about the terrorists, not the civilians.
I think a proper army should know that he's doing a fair war by working according to the international humanitarian law. Right. And this is what the IDF is doing. And if you would have known how much the legal advisor or work whenever we're going to any military operation, I just want to tell you, a few years ago, Israel had the opportunity to make sure all Hamas leadership will be eliminated by one action, but we didn't do anything to do that. That probably would have prevented October 7th because we knew too many civilians would have been involved. So Israel is very cautious when it acts. Israel doesn't target civilians. And in the end of the day, you need to understand that this is our children's life here, our security and our defense, No Israeli
your
wants to
children's
face
lives-
another
your
terror
children's
attack
lives-
like the 7th of
Yeah.
October.
Your children's lives are clearly very important to you. I'm just curious why Palestinian children's lives aren't.
It's not
as
what I'm
important
saying,
to
but
you.
unfortunately, Hamas doesn't care about the
Unfortunately,
children.
is what you're
Hamas
saying.
is the one who's using them as human shield. And if you would have looked at the reality in Gaza, you would have said, this is a monstrous leadership that
The
wants to
reality
kill
in Gaza
children
is you've
deliberately,
completely destroyed.
so Israel will
The
be
reality in
blamed.
Gaza is you've destroyed the place. You've killed tens of thousands of civilians in the process of killing. We don't know how many terrorists. You say 30,000. I cannot understand how you know that number, but have no idea how many children have died as well. But you say that. That's fine. If you're happy with that position, that's fine. But the truth is, you are destroying Gaza, and you have senior members of Netanyahu's government in his cabinet at senior level on the record now saying the policy is to clear them all out. Clear all the Palestinians out and get them out of Gaza.
And as the Israeli ambassador, I'm saying this is not the government's policy. And this is on policy, I can tell you clearly, the policy is to make sure Gaza won't be a threat on Israel.
Well, then you should get him fired for spreading disingenuous lies which sound like genocide, shouldn't you? Otherwise, if you don't, we have to assume that is the government policy.
I'm saying again, the government's policy is being carried by the Prime Minister, by the Foreign Minister, by the Defense Minister. Those are the three people that are actually carrying the policy as a matter of a fact. And I think you just enjoy quoting those things, but you know that Israel is
I don't enjoy
delivering
any of this, Ambassador. I don't enjoy any of this. I think this war should end now. I think your strategy
without having
is
security
failing,
to Israel.
and it should end now.
Without security to Israel. Without the hostages coming back.
You need a better strategy. You need a plan that can work. You need a plan for after the war. The growing belief is that your Prime Minister Netanyahu, he has no incentive to stop this war. The moment he does, 70% of Israelis hold him accountable for what happened in the first place on October the 7th. So he'll be out of his job. Then he's facing corruption charges. So he'll be in a courtroom where he may go to prison. Where's the incentive for that leader to bring this war to an end? There isn't one, which is why we've got where we've got to. That is the cold, hard reality of where we are. And that's why your own Prime Minister, that's why your own former Prime Ministers are turning on this strategy and this government and its policies. And you know it, and I know it. It's not. Don't worry about what I say.
Piers, I'm
just an angry journalist. You've got ex-prime ministers of Israel who say you're committing war crimes, and if you want to prove you're not, let the journalists in, and we can work it out for ourselves.
Piers, let me just make a final comment, because you were saying a lot. So I want to say one thing. Israel doesn't like fighting. This is our sons, brothers, and husbands that are fighting this war. No one has an interest to lose his business and to fight for 600 days unless it's really existential threat. And Gaza has become existential threat because of what happened, because they're being backed up by Iran, and we're not going to let it repeat, even if we lose your sympathy. And we need to win this war, and Israel will do everything to make sure Hamas won't control the Gaza Strip. And I don't get to hear from anyone, including the leaders of Europe, a better plan of how to dismantle Hamas besides fighting. And this is where I'm concluding my conclusion. The war can end up today if Hamas will surrender and if we'll bring our hostages back.
Okay. Ambassador Hotovelli.
The problem with that is there's a pill you have to swallow, and that pill is you're probably never going to get rid of Hamas. If you want to call them a terrorist organization, I've said it before, terrorist organizations, so they fuel off of propaganda and they become an ideology. So it'll be damn near impossible it's damn near impossible to eliminate an ideology. So I don't necessarily think Hamas is going to go anywhere, which means that you're going to have to find a different way, or just keep massacring children. It's like those are your choices. You're sitting up here lying, pretending as if we believe, or trying to make us believe that you don't know that you're sitting bombs and you're knowing that you're killing millions, well, not millions, thousands upon thousands of children.
I appreciate you coming on Uncensored. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, my thanks to Israel's ambassador to the United Kingdom. Listening to that was Mustafa Barghouti, Secretary General of the Palestinian National Initiative, who joins me now from the West Bank. Mr. Barghouti, welcome back to you to Uncensored. As you can tell, that was a pretty fractious interview I just conducted with the ambassador to the UK, I did find it utterly staggering that she seemed to rattle off precise numbers of Hamas terrorists who'd been killed, but had absolutely no idea how many children had been killed in the process, and in fact used the word irrelevant at one stage. What is your reaction?
Well, there are many reactions, actually. I happen to hear some of the answers, not all of them. But first of all, which is the most important thing, the policy of ethnic cleansing, which Smotrich is advocating, the finance minister of Israel, not any minister, the minister of finance, this is usually considered the second most important ministry in any government. But it's not just him who's saying these things. It's Netanyahu himself, the prime minister. The prime minister of Israel is on record saying repeatedly that his goal is to push everybody in Gaza to the south in a concentration camp, practically, in Rafah area, and then to displace them. And he keeps calling that Trump's vision, the Trump's vision of ethnic cleansing, basically. So it's not Smotrich policy, it's the Israeli government policy.
Understand that is like basically Israel is basically stating that the United States is behind all of this because the United States has a vision, therefore we have to do this.
That's what.
Like, that's fucking embarrassing.
Second, of course, we know that about 20,000 children have died and have been killed by the Israeli bombardment. And these are not just numbers. I mean, these are names of people. You mentioned the medical doctor, the pediatrician Ala al-Najjar, who lost 9 of her children in an Israeli bombardment. I know another person, Brahim Abu Mahdi, who had 6 of his sons killed. They're not all children, but 6 of his sons who were working in a kitchen preparing food. They were absolutely innocent. The reality is that, unfortunately, so far 175,000 Palestinians were either killed or injured or imprisoned in this terrible war. And that is about 10% of the population. 10%, apply that to the United States of America, and you will get the number of 33 million Americans killed or injured within the course of 20 months. This is beyond description. By the way, this is much more than even the Second World War, proportionally. Even in France, the number, I think, of those who were killed is less than 6% during the Second World War. So, and even going to the Second World War is by itself a mistake, because how could you compare the situation then with the situation after the Second World War, when we had the United Nations and for the first time international law and international humanitarian law and international criminal court and international court of justice? So it's unacceptable even to compare. Although even if you compare, what Israel has done is much more criminal than what any other government did before. The amount of explosives that were thrown on Gaza since the beginning of this war is no less than 100,000 tons of explosives. That is 50 kilograms of explosives for each man, woman, and child in Gaza. That is more than 5 nuclear bombs, similar to those that were thrown on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during the Second World War. So it is really shocking. And the more important question I would like to answer, because it was asked repeatedly, how can Israel have the security, how Israeli people can be safe? The solution is very simple. It is the solution that Israel has been avoiding for 77 years, which is to accept us, the Palestinian people, as equal human beings, to end their occupation and establish peace. And if they want, if they accept two-state solution, they should bring international forces. We don't mind. Let them sit on the border to guarantee the security for both of us. Or if they want one democratic state with equal rights for everybody. But not to accept two-state solution as they do, and not to accept one democratic state, means that their only solution to the fact that we have 7.3 million people in Palestine versus 7.1 Jewish people, their only solution is ethnic cleansing. That is the reality. And the only way out of this situation, the only way out of these vicious circles of wars is to accept Palestinians as equal human beings, accept our right for self-determination. Today, Gideon Sa'ar, the foreign minister of Israel, said openly, publicly, that if the other countries continue to recognize the Palestinian states, he will impose Israeli sovereignty on the West Bank, which means annexation of the occupied Palestinian territories, which is yet another violation of international law.
Okay, let me just ask you one question, which is, if I was an Israeli or a member of that government, I would not countenance for 1 second that anyone from Hamas could form any part of a new government going forward after this war. Do you accept that Hamas can play no part in any government going forward?
You know, surprisingly, it's not me that have to accept that. Hamas accepts that. Hamas told us, I was present in the meeting that took place in Beijing about a year ago, in July last year, when we had a meeting of all the 14 Palestinian parties. Hamas, the leaders of Hamas told us, and they did that repeatedly, more than once, that they are ready not to be in the government of Gaza. They don't want to be in the government of Gaza. And what we reached in the agreement we reached in Beijing was very clear. There will be a national consensus government consisting of independents, but that are acceptable to different Palestinian political forces. And it would be an interim government till the war ends, until we have the possibility of reconstructing Gaza. So Hamas has told us they don't want to be in the government.
Okay, obviously,
okay.
Obviously Hamas is still holding 58 hostages. Why don't they just release them? Why is there not enough pressure from the Palestinian world collectively to compel Hamas just to release the hostages and bring this to an end? Why don't they do it? But why don't they do it?
No.
Why don't they just do it?
Give me the chance to answer you. They are ready to release all the Israeli prisoners, and they should be called prisoners of war because they are all soldiers. But nevertheless, call them captives if you want.
They're not all soldiers. They're not all soldiers.
No, the ones that are still in with the Hamas are all soldiers. You can check that. They're all soldiers. All the civilians were released already a long time ago. So they are ready to release these soldiers immediately, of course, in exchange of a number of Palestinian prisoners who are sentenced to life imprisonment, because as I don't know if you know or not, but there is more than 10,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails, including, by the way, 300 children, including, by the way, 3,600 that can be called captives as well, because they are civilians and they are arrested without charges under the so-called administrative detention law, which means they are in jail without knowing why. They could be in jail for years without even their lawyers knowing why they are in jail, and without any legal process or any due legal process. So there is the Hamas position, and the other Palestinian parties' position in Gaza is clear. They are ready to release all Israeli prisoners in exchange of release of some of the Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails and the end of the war. It's very simple.
Okay. Mustafa Barghouti, if only it was simple, but if it was simple, it would have happened. So it's not a simple situation.
No, it's not simple for Netanyahu, of course. Because as you said, Netanyahu doesn't care about the Israeli prisoners, doesn't care about their release. All he cares about is himself, about his continuity as a prime minister. He's afraid of being taken to jail, as you said, or losing any chance of staying in political life. And he is most afraid. The other day, I heard one Israeli defenders of Netanyahu saying that the prime minister is the one responsible for the government policy, and that's why he has the right to appoint the head of Shabak. Well, if he is the one responsible, then why he is escaping the responsibility for what happened on the 7th of October?
Okay. Mustafa Barghouti, always good to have you on the show. Thank you very much. Piers Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, We will continue our mission to inform, irritate, and entertain. And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, that was actually, it wasn't bad. I actually enjoyed that conversation. Kinda, not really. Again, I just feel like a lot of people are just delusional. It's not that it's not a hard thing. It's not a hard concept to grasp. If you're gonna stand, I think you're gonna have to stand on business. If you are shooting missiles into an area where you know there are children, there's a great population of children, and you still shoot those missiles to get to like 5 or 10 individuals, you are deliberately doing that. You are conscious and aware of the consequences that is going to come out of this. You still killed those children, and you knew what you were doing. So this was that is deliberate. So I don't understand why she was trying to try to drive the nail home that it wasn't.
Concern about them.
The concern is that there are white farmers who have had violence committed against
why
them,
is
and
there
they're being
concern?
threatened. They're being threatened
Why-
every single
why-
day.
but Scott-
There's 59
but Scott,
people,
hold on a
and you're
second.
triggered about 59
No.
people,
I
and I
haven't
don't know
mentioned-
why.
I haven't mentioned anything about
nothing
59
to
people.
substantiate
That's the
Why,
refugee-
why are
are
you
being
only
targeted.
concerned about white people?
I'm only.
I'm
why
not
are you
against it. I'm not
No,
against
why are
it.
you
I
only
want to
concerned
know.
about white
no,
people?
No. I want you to have a
59
complete.
people.
No, I
59.
want you to have. I can have a complete thought. I want you to have a complete thought.
My thought is,
You are okay.
these people are under threat, and
Well,
now
are
they're coming
you?
here, and you're enraged that they're not
Can
still
you
under
say
threat.
that? Can you say that? In
I mean,
How
I
many
know this.
black,
I wouldn't
how
trust the
many
South
black
African government to tell me.
farmers-
I know that.
How many black
people live in
farmers
South Africa?
have been murdered in South Africa?
Look, you guys are so triggered over 59 people.
No, I'm not.
After we
it's-
left 20 million people in
haven't
the
even
country,
brought
I don't know why you're so
haven't even
triggered
brought
over
up the white people that Trump picked out because they were white and told them they could come to the country.
How much racial
There are
killing are you
nights-
are you going to
I don't even want to go on this one. I think we all understand. I think everybody can come to the consensus of why Donald Trump decided to pick those 59 white South African white people from South Africa because they look like him. That's very clear cut. There's nothing to debate about that. I don't know nothing about that. I won't dare show you guys my fucking algorithm. This shit's crazy. It's all over the place. Oh man. PB, this one was disappointing. I mean, not disappointing.
So he is
I used to watch what the fuck, the Chrisley show used to come on after wrestling on Monday nights. I used to watch it. It was kind of interesting, following this family and stuff like that. But it's the whole scandal and the Chrisleys going to jail because I believe tax evasion and fraud, etc., like that. Todd and his wife. But then come to find out, I didn't know that. I'm not surprised that they were Trump supporters. Not surprised at all. Rich white folks, I wouldn't be surprised if they were Trump voters, at least at some point in their life. It sucks because they were pretty fun to watch at times, but apparently here
immediately released, and I hope that the prison is going to do that shortly. So now I just sit and wait. I have literally been here. I got here at, I think it was 2 a.m. last night, and I have not gone to sleep. I did not bring any clothes with me. I did not bring a toothbrush with me. I brought absolutely nothing with me because I'm just a daughter who wants to take my dad home with me. So.
Well, just moments ago, the daughter of reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley spoke. They will soon walk out of federal prison.
All of this after the president pardoned the couple, and there have been supporters lined up waiting for when he's set free.
Our Dacian Smith is live in Pensacola, where Todd Chrisley has been serving his sentence. And Dacian, any sign of it?
The funny thing is, if they committed the crime that they're in there for, what's the excitement of them getting out? I mean, I can understand Savannah and, close family and relatives and stuff like that, excited to see their loved one get out of prison. a lot of people don't care what their loved ones do to get into prison. They're just happy to see them come out. Before everybody else, I mean, like, if laws were broken here, then it's like, okay, well, why are they getting pardoned? Are they getting pardoned because they're a nice family? They are good people? Good people don't commit crimes. And sometimes the good people who do commit crimes are still in prison. Like, why doesn't anybody take a look at the person who was arrested for nonviolent acts or nonviolent crimes? But yet, I guess, well, let's be honest, we don't know why. It's crazy to me, but this is America.
Well, so far, not yet. There definitely have been more supporters that shown up. And as you saw, Savannah Chrisley, his daughter, is here waiting to take her father home. She's understandably been emotional. It's been an emotional few hours for her since she got that phone call from President Trump yesterday saying that her mom and her dad were being pardoned and that they'd be able to come home.
And just congratulate your parents. And I hear they're terrific people. This should not have happened.
Wait, what should not have happened? It should not have happened that they were that they got arrested for what they did? I'm confused.
As you know, the Chrisleys were convicted in 2022 of conspiring to defraud banks in the Atlanta area out of more than $30 million in fraudulent loans by submitting false documents. Julie Chrisley.
So then why did he say... Going back, I just want to hear the idiot again. Hold on.
And just congratulate your parents. And I hear they're terrific people. This should not have happened.
Like, how how should that not have happened that you can get convicted for fraud? It should not have happened, even though you were found guilty of it.
As you know, the Chrisleys were convicted in 2022 of conspiring to defraud banks in the Atlanta area out of more than $30 million in fraudulent loans by submitting false documents. Julie Chrisley was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison and has been serving time in Kentucky, while her husband Todd was sentenced to 12 years as behind bars here at the federal prison camp in Pensacola. Again, Chrisley's daughter Savannah did just get here maybe about 20-30 minutes ago. She's parked off to the side here outside of the gate, waiting on the official.
Bro. Oh, wow. Ooh.
Word from the prison that her father has been processed, that she's able to go in there, pick him up, and finally take him home. She said it's been an emotional day or so for her family. Her brother, she says, is in Kentucky waiting to pick up her mom so that they can bring her home as well. Not only is she excited, there's been several supporters out here that have just grown in numbers.
Again, I can understand the family, right? The children, I can understand their excitement, right? It doesn't matter what your loved ones do. You're just glad to see them. But like, if laws are being broken, I don't know how you justify like this pardon. Like, if they're supposed to serve time for defrauding the banks, or was it a conspiracy or not conspiracy or conspired, whatever. If they were convicted for this, they should serve their time. It sounds as if didn't even serve half of it. So I'm saying, I don't know why I'm confused. I understand it. I mean, I don't want to keep making things about race, but they make it so fucking obvious. This is crazy. If it isn't about race, then it's about wealth.
Over the last few hours, some of them getting up right.
Like, if you're guilty of a crime, you should be guilty of a crime. Like, I don't understand why there are select few people that just get a break. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's annoying. Fucking annoying.
The violent images that aren't being shown are babies riddled with assault rifle bullets.
I'm opposed to that, Brenda. I don't know what you think of my position, but I think that it's horrific, the violence against school children and children in our country and what guns are used for. I think it is mind-numbingly horrific. So we agree on that. I'm talking about the baby that you just said you were okay with being killed in the second trimester as long as its body is pierced with a needle and its heart is injected with a substance that gives us a heart attack, and then it's okay to dismember that baby and remove the baby from the mother. I'm trying to understand how you're okay with that.
Because of the circumstances, because of humanity.
But you're against it you would be against that for a convicted murderer, and let's say it's a school shooter who's on death row, and you would say save his life because it's clear that violence against him is wrong.
Just do that shit. I think when people are drawing a clear line between valuing a potential life or valuing this over that. I think there's a lot of people that, while pregnancy is beautiful, while childbirth is beautiful, that pregnancy still does not grant it more value than like a normal person. Sometimes even the worst of them. I mean, I guess that's what it's always going to come down to. That's why I always hate that argument. Like, you want to talk about the morality of it, that's fine, but stop trying to pretend as if I should have the same value as you. I should value life the same way you do. I don't value life like that. Of course, I value, like, if my significant other was pregnant, I would value that fetus. Would I value it over a normal person, somebody who's already existing, who's had a lived experience, a past, present, and potential future experience? I don't know if I would. It would depend on the situation. But I mean, there's some biases there, but I hate this argument.
But you're saying there's all this complexity now.
Like, what happens to the fetus after it's already, deceased, after it's already been ended? I don't care. I don't care what happens. You're just trying to pump in images into people's head to make it sick to their stomach, and also try to nail into their head, this is a horrible thing. This should not be happening. It's like, get the fuck out of here with that shit, bro.
For this baby.
All this for a child you met yesterday.
All this for children you never even had.
Hey, yo. Hey, yo, I didn't even notice he said that shit in the movie.
All this for a child you met yesterday.
All this for children you never even had.
Blood. Bro, I did not even know he said that. It is fucking diabolical. I just want to show a little bit of my fucking shorts algorithm. That's basically what it is.
All of these older women, let's keep it real, who are laughing because they find it ridiculous, but they forget that the vast majority of people don't have cushy TV daytime jobs, right? Where they're still raking in the big bucks and they don't have to worry about their financial future. For a lot of Americans, in fact, most Americans, once you hit a certain age, if you get fired, if you're in your 50s and you lose your job, you get laid off. Do you know how difficult it is for them to find another job? Do you know how rampant age discrimination is in the workplace? So, like, listen, it's easy for them to laugh about those fears, but those fears are real. And I would venture to say that the people who are actually out of touch are not the Zoomers who are concerned about that. It's the people sitting.
In the latest example of how meritocracy is just a myth in the United States, the New York Times has published a lengthy feature on The View and has dubbed it the most important political TV show in America. That is what they have called it. The most important political show in America. And I'm talking about The View, where on a regular basis, not only we dunk on them, but the country dunks on them because they have absolutely no knowledge.
I think I want to be stuck in whatever internet bubble you guys are in, because I'm not reading that my sit down with Ben Shapiro was totally okay. In fact, I get a lot of backlash from the left about how I'm a secret Trump supporter. I'm actually a secret right-winger. Some people have accused me of being alt-right. One of the things I got in trouble for fairly recently was, I don't know, I just think asylum seekers or people who are here with undocumented.
Like, I feel like it's a clown show, like sitting here trying to decipher what your little mythical book has to say about these very real political issues, right? I don't care if you're Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says.
And that's why it feels like when it almost feels like you're rubbing it in our face
And
when
I know,
you say that.
and I know they don't mean to do that.
Yeah, I agree with
but I do think that for people who deliver the news or discuss or analyze what's happening in the country, it's a big problem when you look at pretty much every news organization and realize a lot of these people went to Ivy Leagues. A lot of these people come from affluent families. A lot of these people are totally disconnected.
You did not see this one coming.
Because I want to juxtapose the kind of life Whoopi Goldberg lives and what average Americans are struggling with right now. So let's go to graphic 4 here. After landing her gig on The View, Goldberg relocated back to New York City, where she bought a full floor loft in Soho for $4 million.
Me too. She knows. She knows the working class.
She sold the 2-bedroom apartment in 2010 during the economic crash, of course, for just under $3 million. So she lost there. But in a search for more privacy, she moved to the New Jersey suburbs, purchasing a $2.8 million.
When I first saw the headline, I thought she just said she'd make a good Surgeon General. She added details about what a great doctor she is. You obviously didn't know that because she isn't a doctor. I mean, she's a doctor again in academically, but not a medical doctor. So
how are people allowed to go on television and talk about things that they're not prepared? It blows my mind that anyone still believes that this country is at all based on meritocracy. Like, it's just not. A mistake is a mistake. I get it. And I actually don't get mad simply because someone disagrees with progressives on television. I get mad when they come from a place of ignorance, like they don't know the facts of the story, and then they come out hard against progressives. Like, if you have a counterpoint to what we believe and it's a good point, it is money off of their garbage videos, constantly attacking us, taking us out of context, misrepresenting where I stand on issues, because hey, it's a great way of grifting and making money off of attacking us for doing absolutely nothing wrong.
And there's some people who have a cottage industry of that kind of
grif. I can't.
So look,
she's like the people calling me a grifter, they're actually the grifters. It's like that scene in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
You are painting a picture of the homeless community. You know, how could you be like this? You know, these are your unhoused neighbors and they need help. A few people accused me of being racist when I had never disclosed the race of the individuals who did this to me.
She didn't.
They're selfish, they've decided against it, they're miserable women. He's obviously tapping into a ridiculous stereotype, but you also have to consider the fact that there are plenty of women out there who want to have families. They haven't found the right partner for them yet. They want to ensure that they have a dependable partner to have children with. There are women who desperately want to conceive but cannot conceive for whatever reason.
Daytime television. It's where politics meets personality, and debates often feel more like reality TV drama than serious discussions. Among these shows, The View has built a reputation as a powerful platform shaping political conversations across America. But what if beneath the glossy smiles and heated exchanges lies a story of spectacle over substance? When Anna Kasparian stepped onto that stage, she didn't just join the conversation. She shook it to its core, exposing the cracks in the polished facade. Today, we're diving deep into Anna's fearless critique, unpacking what it reveals about The View, meritocracy, and the media we trust. Before we jump in, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more insightful breakdowns, and drop.
I have zero idea what we're listening to right now. I stepped away for a split second. Yeah, shit. I mean, I should know since I don't want to actually press the fucking play button, but I just had to run to the laboratory. I don't know what's going on here. I don't care. That wasn't what it was looking like, people. Wow. Why does my... Wait a minute. Why does my...
So Bill Maher had Tim Pool on his Club Random podcast. Now, by the way, I think I saw some article about how Bill Maher was creating a podcast studio or like a network with other shows, and apparently that went under in less than a year or two or something like that. Like, I didn't even know he was trying to produce other shows for his like Club Random network or whatever the fuck. But anyway, this show is, man, it is just, you could tell this is a guy who's an attention whore, Bill Maher is, and he just wanted to get in on the podcast craze. He saw the success of like the Rogan sphere, and so he wanted to get in. But it's everything about it is so fucking try hard. He's so try hard. I mean, he's always been try hard with his whole like every week on his show. You get his whole shtick of, I'm Bill Maher. I smoke weed. Okay, I have sex. Okay, I'm a bad boy. Like you get that sort of shit, and that's just ramped up times 1,000 on this podcast, because every show it's like he's got to be like, don't mind me, I'm just over here mixing my drink as I talk to you, because I'm just like a cool guy, you know what I'm saying? I'm like I'm total bad boy over here, bro. He'll like smoke weed. It's all so try hard. It's so put on. But anyway, I don't know why I went on that random side tangent, but Bill Maher had Tim Pool on his show, and look, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I did not watch the whole thing. I would rather shove a cactus up my urethra than watch an entire podcast with Tim Pool and Bill Maher. Okay, but I did have this one clip, which I could not help myself. I had to play it for you guys, and I had to talk about it, because this just drives me absolutely mad, y'all. So the title here is, Are You Fucking Kidding Me? Bill Maher scolds liberals over Hamas support. Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's watch.
One of the main reasons why the far left started to really hate me is because I call out Islam as what it is, extremely illiberal. That's what's so ironic about liberals being so supportive of Hamas, is because you're liberals. And these are the people, I'm sorry, but this ideology, Islam, even in its more benign forms, yes, I agree. The vast majority of Muslims, not terrorists, of course, but Islamists, which is the word we use to describe people who are not terrorists but kind of agree with the things terrorists are doing and are for, that's a much higher number. That's many millions of people. And even the rank and file, I mean, most Muslim societies live under some form of Sharia law, which no Westerner who thinks that Hamas is so great could ever live under. Your fundamental rights that you take for granted here in America, you would not have. You know, I mean, all the protesters who are protesting in Gaza against Hamas, they've all been killed. Right. They killed protesters.
Hey, who's doing most of the killing in Gaza, Bill? Who's doing like 98% of the killing? Any thoughts on those people? No, I didn't think so.
I mean, do I have to say anything more than just if it was just that issue, how women are treated? Are you fucking kidding?
Yeah, because Bill Maher, he treats women phenomenally well, I'm sure. All right, Jesus Christ. For so long, we heard on shitty fucking podcasts like this, in order to have honest intellectual engagement, you need to steel man your opponent, not straw man your opponent. We're all about ideas. We're all about conversations and discussions and the free flow of ideas, and let the best idea win in the marketplace of ideas. Ideas. They have conversations about having conversations all the time. That's what they fucking do on these podcasts. But do you actually believe that is a fair representation of the liberals and leftists and the pro-Palestine protesters and their position on Gaza? No, he doesn't. Bill Maher doesn't believe that, because he had Bill Burr sit across from him and set him straight on this issue. His stupid, the liberals are actually supporting Hamas. Okay.
Yeah, I heard he said that. That's the craziest take I've ever heard in a while. Liberals support, not even like specifics. Like, even if you look into the context, there was no real he wasn't really being specific about that. As a matter of fact, I want to go to the actual. Let me see if I can find the actual. Secular Talk, Kalkalinsky, W. But I kind of want to. Let me see if I can find the actual Bill Maher, Tim Pool. Ooh. Damn. I'm glad you guys can't really see that. That's horrible typing.
The way the world is going, everybody could use therapy, but costs a fortune. It's time consuming because of the back and forth. Getting therapy should not be this complicated. That's why today's I tell you what I'm not going to do is show up unannounced at your door in the middle of the night. Hey, Tip, it'll be like Sonny on the Causeway, you know, it'll be the end of Bonnie and Clyde. I'll just be like riddled with, boy.
It's a crazy
You got
story.
to take it as kind of a compliment. People care.
That's true. If they're not, you know, I don't know.
But does it make your wife nervous? Does she hate it? Does she like, get out of the game, man?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Get out of the game.
Yep.
Really?
Uh-huh.
And what do you say when she says, get out of the game?
Yes.
You do? You're going to get out of the game?
So.
No.
Yeah, last October. Wow.
Scoop. You know, like, okay, I want to excel at this, I assume, so I can get chicks. But then when I get them, my dick, yeah, I've got a mushroom dick, you know.
Yeah.
There's
so much weird stuff now. Like I've had guys talking about like peptide things they take and HGH. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. I'll get old. That's what I'll do.
I agree. I mean, I had this actual discussion with Joe Rogan on his show.
If you were, you know, I'm like a Chicago liberal, but the way things have gone, especially with like the woke stuff, is where I end up in this position, and so does my neighborhood. I think it's interesting to see my neighborhood reflective of my politics and vice versa.
I think the phrase I was using last year was aggressively non-common sense or uncommonsensical. And it's like I accent aggressively. I don't think the woke people who have the vast amount of energy really in the Democratic Party understand why the people vote against them. And it's like, because if you add up like how many people are really affected by some of the aggressively uncommon sense things, it's probably not that many.
You got a great bit on that.
Yeah.
Why are you pandering to 400 people?
Of course. Okay. But when you add up these things and, you know, men competing in women's sports and like just too much indoctrination of children with sexual ideas that they're too young to understand, like when you add up all these things that get in the media a lot, it paints a picture, not a wrong picture, in the mind of the average voter that, yeah, maybe policy-wise I would do better under the Democrats or Bernie Sanders, but these other people just seem fucking crazy. They seem like committed to just going to absurd lengths just for shits and giggles, just for the fuck of it, just this bizarre attachment to things that are just ridiculous.
I think it's to hate the other side.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's certainly what the other side does. They call it making you cry your liberal tears.
Right.
The entire policy, well, not always now, there are some things that
let's just say how fucking psychopathic that is. He's like, oh yeah, I would definitely benefit. I would definitely benefit under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I feel like society will benefit. Stock markets will never crash. Everything will be going peachy keen. There might actually be at least some discussion around a two-state solution. You know, who knows? But why would I do that? Let me just make myself fucking miserable and vote for the other side just because, oh man, men in women's sports, the 5 individuals, the 5 people in women's sports, that's so fucking mind-blowing. I'm gonna sacrifice my fucking dignity because of a fucking track meet or whatever the fuck. This doesn't make any fucking sense. I blame you, Riley Gaines.
have different motivations. You know, I know you're involved with the tariff debate because, you know, that works both ways. Sometimes free trade does hurt people, and that's why there are tariffs. Trump is not the first person to advocate tariffs. He's just the first person to do it in this kind of crazy haphazard way.
Right, I agree. I think that, you know, when he announced selective tariffs, I was like, all right, let's go. Then we announced universal tariffs. I was like, I don't know if that makes sense. What's he doing? And you know, but I'm not. I think one of the problems that we've seen over the past several years with Trump is the immediate assumption that he's a crazy person all the time. And so the only thing I can say is, well, you know, I vote for the guy. I think this is probably doesn't make sense to me, but I'll see what happens and we'll see if it makes sense. Selective tariffs, I think, do make sense. But I do think that the way the Democratic Party has handled opposition has guaranteed the kind of Trumpian politics.
Well, I'm sure you heard about my little trip to the White House.
Absolutely.
And thank you. And the thing that upset the far left so much, these same people who believe in the crazy things I was just mentioning, and the ones who really hate me, they really found a new reason to hate me because when I came back and gave my report about it, you know, among the things I said, to your point about everything is crazy, was, I think, word for word, a crazy person doesn't live in the White House. A person who plays a crazy person on TV lives in the White House.
Yeah.
And they found that very triggering. But again,
it wasn't triggering. It's just not. It wasn't factual, Bill. I think a lot of the times these people who exist in this weird realm where they're going to call themselves, they're not liberal, they're not left, they're not radical left. They don't know who the fuck they are, the Bill Maher's or the Stephen A's. They say shit that sounds so out of touch and misses the entire fucking point. It ain't about who the fuck you met in the White House. Maybe some people actually gave a fuck about you going to the White House and talking to the motherfucker in general. There's a lot of us that didn't give a shit. The problem I had was you coming on your show on live television trying to convince us that this is all a game. Trump isn't really this raging white nationalist, racist, bigoted, anti-constitutional, fear-mongering son of a bitch. He's not really that. You got to meet him in the White House. That's not who he is. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. Because, like, even behind, if that was the case, you would have to. So, wait, what did John Kelly say? We didn't hear him talk about how he admired Hitler or the things. And I'm not saying that he is Hitler. I'm saying what John Kelly said. He was in the White House. He was part of his cabinet. He's part of his staff. So he would know that this guy is an actual fucking psychopath. Like, you're not going to pretend as if we didn't see this motherfucker call for the execution of the Central Park 5. Let's be for real. We're not going to sit here and be like, this individual is not the same person who fucking condemned the NFL for allowing Kaepernick to practice his First Amendment right. That's fucking crazy. That was the thing. You're not going to gaslight me into believing that the person that we saw on television, the president of the fucking United States, wasn't being authentic in his bullshittery. That was the problem. You went in there, you came out with your own take. Fine, okay, whatever. But don't try to convince me that that motherfucker isn't who he says he is. I think that was the entire point. And Bill Maher missed the entire point why everybody was frustrated. It wasn't with his actual visit or having a conversation with Donald Trump. There's a lot of people, either in podcasts or even people in Congress, that would want to have a conversation, that wouldn't mind having a conversation with Donald Trump if given the opportunity. I think it's what you said afterwards that was an actual fucking thing. That's it. It's not about you going there. It's about you trying to convince us that this guy isn't who he says he is. And you're talking to Tim Pool out of all fucking people about it.
As I said many times during that piece, I'm just going to tell you the truth. I didn't vote for him. I think we all know that. I went right back to being as tough on him as I ever had been. So I wasn't like seduced, but that was my estimation. Again, to your point about, is he just crazy? When you meet him in person and spend that kind of time and he's not on his his attack mode thing, he does not strike you as a crazy person or a person who doesn't listen or can't hear things. Again, they were very mad at me for saying this, but that's what happened. And I am not a liar. That's my main bond with the audience. So even if I offended some people by telling the truth, in the long run, that's what I do. And they,
What I saw in 2020, I was not going to vote for Trump. I'll never vote for Trump. I don't love Trump. And I donated the max to Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. And my position, my whole thought process was, the Democrats are going crazy, and we need the moderate, sane Democrats to maintain control of this party and stop the insanity.
Correct.
And they lost.
And
so then Trump put out his statement in around August saying, we're going to ban DEI in government contracting. We're going to do these things, blah, blah. No new wars was big for me. I'm a very anti-interventionist for a lot of reasons. And so I said, I guess I'm voting for Trump. Instantly, it was like, the liberals, even YouTube, they all said, we're going to move your name over to this list. I kid you not. There's representatives at YouTube. They told me straight up that the liberal rep was no longer representing me, and they were switching me to a conservative rep. It was the weirdest thing. Yeah. And I'm like, it's not that I like who Trump is or that I'm like thinking that conservatives have good policy. I'm pro-choice. The issue is that you can look at it right now. There's no charismatic leaders. There's no front runners. There's no policy position. It seems like the only thing they have is the right is bad, Trump is bad. And so I'm asking, like, what are our plans?
No, they have, Democrats have policy positions on everything, and many of them are, I think, preferable to Republican policy positions. Number one being they concede elections. That's kind of a big one with me. They listen to what courts say.
I don't know about that.
You don't think they listen to what courts say?
I mean, so Joe Biden,
they
ignored the court rulings twice on forgiving student loans and then tried to decree the Equal Rights Amendment.
That's true.
But I'm not saying defend Trump. I'm just saying, like,
Club Random is brought to you by the Freedom from Religion Foundation. You ever been on a road trip where one person insists on controlling the music? You're just trying to enjoy the ride, but now you're stuck listening to nothing but their favorite band. No discussion, no compromises, just their way or the highway. Well, that's kind of what's happening with Christian nationalism. Some folks want to take over the wheel and force everyone to follow their beliefs, shoving religion into our laws, our schools, and even our personal choices. But hey, this country was built for everyone, not just for one group. That's where the Freedom from Religion Foundation comes in. Think of them as the GPS keeping church and state in separate lanes, just like the founders actually intended. So whether you're the work of finding and scheduling qualified post-job,
and you have experiences that I don't even know they exist.
Yeah, but so, you know what? I didn't live through Lincoln, but I know about it.
Sure. My point is, my experience in politics has been the Democrats have challenged more than Republicans. To be fair,
Have challenged the court?
challenged the elections more than the Republicans have, in extreme ways.
That's ridiculous.
So, but perhaps because you're older than me and you've seen more than I have. So
Again, there are history books, there's newspapers.
I know.
You don't know something only because you lived through it. I know about the French Revolution also.
My point is,
I mean, you could know about this.
Indeed.
I mean, this is something that people your age say all the time, and I've made fun of it before. Like, if I wasn't alive for it, it didn't happen. I don't have to know about it.
But that's
no,
what
I mean, okay, but
I'm saying that in 2016, I didn't vote for either Trump or Hillary, and then I got 3 years of Trump as working for the Russians.
he was not working for the Russians.
Jonathan Chait went on MSNBC and said he may have been a Soviet asset since the 80s.
Well,
and so for me, I'm like, I'm out. This is crazy. And so, like, understand, I'm not saying you're wrong about history. I'm saying that experiencing a political cycle over years is different from reading the condensed history books, which of course I do. So to live through 4 years of a president, their term every single moment, the history books gloss over most of those experiences that we don't have as young people. So I have people on my show who are 25. And one of the people who works for us says, nothing ever happens. She's 24. And this is like a Gen Z thing. Nothing ever happens. And I said, are you kidding? The past 10 years have been nothing but happenings.
Yeah.
Here's the issue. When she was 14, she wasn't paying attention to politics. When she was around 20 years old and started, this was the natural state of politics in her experience. So this is basic. This is normal. And for me, it's crazy. And I think for you, it's crazy. But they grew up in this and they've normalized it. So my view is this. Not to say that you're wrong, obviously. My point is, when I watched the Democrats accuse Trump and Manafort and Carter Page, all of these things, especially when they fabricated evidence against Carter Page, I'm just like, wow, I can't believe the Democrats are going to this length to deny an election.
You're watching a little too much Fox News or somebody who's slanting this a certain way. I mean, Paul Manafort was sharing polling information with a GRU agent.
And do you know how they found out about that?
How did they find out about that?
Ukrainian government officials share it with the Democratic Party. Politico reported it. So you have this Ukrainian interference in our election as reported by Politico. And I look at that and I go, wow, the Ukrainian government sent incriminating evidence to the Democrats? Crazy story. And then they claim
but it was true.
Indeed. And the issue is, why wasn't that a scandal? That the Ukrainians were interfering in the election?
Let's not get, because this is a friendly thing, let's not get into the weeds on like the Russia thing. First of all, it's like 5 years old, so people are bored with it. Okay, but I'll just say this in general. It'd be hard to argue with it, I think, but I'll just say it and maybe we can just move on. Whatever it was, I don't think Trump was a Russian asset. Don Jr. at one point said, or maybe it was Eric, we do get a lion's share of our contribution, to the company from the Russians. So there was obviously a lot of involvement with the Russians. Trump was asked at his first press conference, and he said, "I have no dealings with the Russians." It's a total, complete lie. They had nothing. It's not illegal. It's not, but it's it just looks suspicious to say, "I don't know anything about the Russians." And they're like, "I don't know anybody who's talking to the Russians." Everybody in the administration, Michael Flynn was prosecuted for it, was talking to the Russians. He said on TV, "Russia, if you're listening, I want your help with something." Okay, whether you think that's good or bad, it was completely unprecedented. So, like the idea that he should not have been investigated for there's a lot of smoke here with Trump and Russia. To me, okay, I'm sure they overdid it as everybody overdoes everything, but there was a lot of smoke, enough to investigate, and what he was asking another country to do in our elections publicly was unprecedented. We always had one rule in this country: we're going to go against each other. Yes, Republican, Democrat, we'll do whatever it takes, but we don't bring in ringers from outside.
Ukraine.
What they brought that in the same election?
I forgot the name of the woman. This is on Politico. You can just read their story. It was I can't remember the guy's name who reported it.
Now it's possible that again, there's always some version of it on the other side. It's just not as egregious, I think.
You know, they're accusing me of working for the Russians now, and this is, or they tried. And so here's the story. I get contacted by a conservative personality. I've got 3 shows that I host, several that I have staff that host. One of them is called The Culture War.
Right.
We produced it for 2 years, Friday mornings, similar to this, sometimes debates. And I was reached out by like 3 different companies who said, we want to license something you're doing. And I said, we do our own internal ad sales. We don't need a license. Some offers were made. Some of them were really good. And I said, I'm not really interested because the ad sales I can generate exceed your licensing. So I get reached out by this company in Tennessee from a well-known, prominent conservative personality who works for one of the big companies and said, we've secured an investor. We want to license the show. We negotiated terms. Lawyer negotiated terms, market rate, non-exclusive license for distribution. They could sell the ads on the show. I get the money, the licensing fee, which basically, I can choose to grow the show for 2 years or just license it now and take the money.
You sound like you're a naturally savvy businessman.
Maybe. Well, this didn't work out too well for me because what happened was at the end of last year, the DOJ indicted some random, I say random because they're not personalities from Russians, who were apparently in some Eastern European country, claiming that they were funneling money illicitly into this conservative company in Nashville to then promote Russian propaganda or something. The narrative now is Tim Pool was prosecuted for working for the Russians. The real story is the DOJ launched an indictment and dropped it almost immediately with no evidence, accusing a conservative personality of illicitly taking money from the Russians without evidence, destroyed the company, destroyed their lives, and then impugned the honor of anybody who had done any license agreements with a Nashville-based company.
Well, you really hit people's nerves.
But I didn't do anything.
I tell you what I'm not going to do is show up unannounced at your door in the middle of the night. Hey, Tim, it'll be like Sonny on the Causeway, It'll be the end of Bonnie and Clyde. I'll just be like riddled with, boy.
It's a crazy
You got
story.
to take it as kind of a compliment. People care.
That's true. If they're not, I don't know.
But does it make your wife nervous? Does she hate it? Is she like, get out of the game, man?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Get out of the game.
Yep.
Really?
Uh-huh.
And what do you say when she says, get out of the game?
Yes.
You do? You're going to get out of the game?
So,
no.
Yeah, last October,
Scoop.
I basically was just fed up.
What's a game?
With politics.
Oh, the game?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look like I'm at death's door.
No, you're pretty good.
I mean, do I act like it? I've never missed a show except the two they forced me to miss when I had COVID. Wink, wink. They forced me because, of course, I could have contaminated, and the entire city could have died.
I think
Discover how audio marketing
700,000 to 800,000 viewers per night, which is nothing compared to where Anderson Cooper was 20 years ago. It's decentralizing, it's changing. And so we have a big audience. People talk like, wow, you've got this really big show. And I'm like, yes, but there's 50 other shows now that are comparable.
And also, just to put it, okay, how many adults are there in America? About 280 million?
And
right?
Gen Alpha's tiny.
Okay, but I'm just saying, of all the adults who could be doing something, if it's 280 million and 700,000 to 800,000 are doing something, yeah, that's compared to how many it could be. To your point,
right?
You know, like.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was I got quite bored. But like as far as Tim Pool being a Russian asset, or let's go back to Trump being a Russian asset, I think Bill Maher is basically correct on why people thought that way. Trump does a lot of things to make people feel as if, okay, well, you're accused of this because of this. There's always something to go back on, which is why inciting a fucking riot or inciting a fucking insurrection on January 6th is something that we can just go ahead and tally back to. He does not accept failure. He does not accept things like that. So makes sense. Ooh. Nope, not even gonna touch that craziness stuff. I'm gonna leave that be for right now. Anyway. It's been like 1 hour and 30 minutes. I'm getting the fuck out of here. If you're out there, thank you for showing up. I'm about to get the hell out of here. And I will catch people on the flip side. Feel me? Alright.